Hey guys, welcome back to the Kami House. We have another video deck tech for you. If you didn't get a chance to check out our last deck tech, it was a Black Raditz. The link is in the description down below. Make sure you guys check that out. That video was pretty sweet. But today we are here to talk about Saiyan Nappa.
Saiyan Nappa. He's another one of the new personalities. We're probably going to talk about Tien at some point as well, but right now we got the big man, the big bald mustachio.
Indeed, that mustache is strong.
All right, let's get started here.
Anywho.
So here's stage 1 Nappa. Not a whole lot of high power levels. It's pretty thematic, but he never gets out of B, so that's pretty good. It's pretty bad that he never gets out, but he never really leaves it dropping down. So his power is a physical attack. There's 3 stages of damage, and it destroys one of your opponent's allies. And that's not even a hit effect. That's just when he attacks. So I think this is going to be really important for the health of the format to make sure that Ginyu doesn't get to take over again. This is really an anti-Ginyu personality.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I have crowned Nappa officially the Ginyu Slayer.
Sure.
Because that's what he does, and that's what he does best. And he has 2 levels as we move on, devoted to strictly just destroying allies, which I think is awesome, but in the same way it's like, it's daggers, because I love Ginyu. We both love Ginyu. Yeah. So, anyway, like we said, level 1, pretty sweet, just destroying allies like it's his business. Going on to level 2, his power is, if you change levels of this combat, your opponent's personality loses 2 stages whenever you perform an attack. Otherwise, your opponent's main personality loses 1 stage when you perform an attack. This is awesome, because if you happen to level up during combat, you're just doing that extra point of damage. And even if you don't, you're still doing 1.
Yeah, it adds an extra stage on all of your attacks. So it's like he's not even in B, it's like he's in C. And also, it's whenever you make the attack, it's not when the attack hits. So if they block it, you're still doing damage, which is good against all the kind of the energy-hungry decks out there that have a lot of blocks. Decks like Krillin right now need a lot of stages, but they have a lot of blocks. They hope to just never get hit, but this kind of stops those plans.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing's worse than someone just time his warriors to him, and then you have a chance to level up, and then you're still just doing those 2 stages, and you're just emptying out your hand, which is kind of what you want to do almost every time.
This is great against time his warriors, too. I didn't even think about that. This is really, really good, because that card is so good against Saiyan decks.
It is. So moving on to Nappa level 3.
It's a physical attack. The damage is 7 stages, and if it hits, you banish a drill or ally. So this one has to hit. It doesn't just do it on attack, but it's 7 stages instead of 3, which is a lot, especially when he's probably going to be hitting with mostly physicals anyway. 7 stages should knock him almost all the way down to 0, and it should get you higher than them for all of your card effects, your power level at least. It does have to hit to banish a drill or ally, but the fact that he can get rid of a drill is pretty good. The only one that I can see being a real problem is the Burning Aura drill, which you have to hit in order to get rid of it, but you have to have it soak up an attack in order to make this attack. So,
which I mean, once we get through the deck list, honestly, like every time you enter combat, you should just be drawing attacks.
Right.
So even if you need to just even if you just have to hit once, like that, usually if you're on level 3, that's probably you just need that 1 hit to exile the 1 ally or drill. That's probably causing you problems.
And this is a real attack, and he has an attack on his card, so it's just card advantage. Yeah,
it's 7 stages.
It's big,
pretty beefy.
Yeah.
Moving on to level 4 Nappa, definitely showing some cleavage there in this one. It's an attack. It's just a constant. Your attacks deal +4 stages of damage. If your opponent's main personality level is 0, your attacks cannot have their damage prevented. Yeah. Now this is just awesome, because once you get them to 0 and you're on level 4 Nappa, you should literally just run through their deck.
Right. They can't use endurance anymore. Once they get to 0, all of his attacks do +4 stages. So even though he has kind of low stages, it puts him in a giant power bracket. We were talking about it earlier. He's in C for most of this stage. He's in a B, the bottom 2 stages, but he's essentially higher than F if your opponent is at 0 stages.
Right.
He's going to deal an extra 4 on top of the 3 that he was doing, so it's a 7-stage base plus whatever modifiers it is, which is higher than Super Saiyan God Goku even.
Yeah.
So he's
kind of impressive.
He's real. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
And I mean, you'll see as we go on. This is the Saiyan Mastery. If you've never had a chance to play with the Saiyan Mastery, it feels kind of like the Namekian before they eroded it, and like you just gain levels. You just gain anger like it's nobody's business. You do it very fast. So I imagine that Nappa will kind of skyrocket to level 4 pretty fast.
Probably.
So moving on to the events.
Yeah. So the events we have, the suite is a little bit different than a lot of decks. We don't have a lot of blocks in this deck. I think the only block is Time as a Warrior's Tool. which is kind of a staple in most decks. It's really more of a time walk. It just helps you dominate combat. It's not really a block. It's not a defensive deck at all. So we have Saiyan Power Up, which helps you restore some stages. Also can help you get above your opponent for the power level or higher cards. Saiyan Strength Test and Saiyan Rescue, which we'll talk about in just a second. It's part of a package. And then 3 copies of Stare Down to take all the Time as a Warrior's tools, take your opponent's physical blocks, anything that they have that is really busted that you want to break up, and to kind of feel out what sequence you want to make your attacks in.
Going back to the package that we were talking about, we wanted to talk about this guy. So you're probably thinking, why are we running 1 Saiyan Strength and 1 Saiyan Rescue? Well, we do have this attack, this physical attack, the Saiyan Body Blow. So why don't you tell us how this is going to interact?
Sure. So the Saiyan Body Blow is a physical attack. It's attack table plus 3 stages, and you can search your life deck for a card you can attach to your main personality and place it into play attached. So what you get to do, it's already a fine attack. It's a physical attack, which is kind of the theme of the deck. It's a Saiyan attack, so raise your anger. So you make this attack. You don't have to hit. You just go and search for either the Saiyan Strength Test or Saiyan Rescue, and it's kind of a little toolbox. They have a couple different interesting abilities that they have. You can always play them if you draw them, of course, but it's just nice to have this extra kind of wrinkle. So as far as Saiyan Strength Test, you attach to your main personality, you draw a card. Whenever you raise your anger, you banish the bottom card of your opponent's discard pile, which is really good against the Namekian decks. Any decks that are trying to capitalize on rejuvenation, it can kind of harass the red decks as well. When you get it for free off Saiyan Body Blow, it's nice, and if you draw it, it's not that big a deal either because it just cycles itself. You draw another card, so it's somewhat situational sometimes, but I think it's pretty interesting, and you're going to raise your anger a ton. You'll raise your anger 3 or 4 times per combat, so you're going to banish a lot of cards. It messes up Visiting the Past. It messes up just a lot of things, and it's nice to kind of harass them and make it hard for them to set up.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you were to slap this on Nappa very early in the game, it's going to kind of disrupt their discard pile plan enough for you to think just pull ahead, and like it's not going to be an issue. Like blanking draws like Visiting the Past. Or even just banishing allies out of graveyards is really good against gaming decks.
I agree. Saiyan Rescue is the other event we can attach, and you can only have 1 Saiyan Rescue attached, of course. You attach your main personality and rejuvenate 1, so you'll go ahead and gain an anger when you attach it. And once per turn as an action, you can choose a card in your discard pile to rejuvenate, which is useful. It's nice to have that extra choice, but basically it just gains you an anger every turn if you want to, because you're going to have a Saiyan card to rejuvenate. So it's just a static effect that gains you a bunch of anger, which is kind of what we're trying to do. And it's free off the Body Blow. So these are just kind of icing on top of the cake. Body Blow is a fine attack, and it's nice to have all this extra stuff going on.
Yeah, and that's what's really cool about this package is you're not really taking up deck list space when you're running these 2 cards, but you essentially have 4 copies of each.
Right.
When you're really only running just the 2. And they're really hard to remove, so it's kind of like you just see them when you want to, and you get to pick and choose, which I think is really cool about any kind of toolbox package that you can offer.
Yeah.
Moving on to Nappa's name cards.
Yeah.
Which I think are actually really sweet. Looking at the first one, Nappa's Confidence, it's banish after use. Power is choose a personality in play. That personality loses 4 stages. If that personality's power level is 0, you may banish a setup, drill, or ally. Again, going back to like ally killer.
Yeah.
Which is nice. It also destroys the setup or drill.
Yeah,
it's super relevant.
It's a blue betrayal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a blue betrayal for Nappa, which is really cool. You kind of, the only downside of this card is you want their power stages to be at 0, so you get that bonus. So it's,
you kind of want that anyway, though, right? So
yeah, for sure. Like that's the game plan. But the issue is, like, let's say you're going up against a Galdo, and you really want to get Galdo out of the way. You kind of have to wait for their power stages to be at 0 in order to remove that problem on the field.
Sure.
So it's the timing is a little awkward, but just to have that option, plus it's an attack.
Yeah. Although that being said, I think that Nappa himself can get rid of allies pretty effectively. And if you're playing against a Ginyu deck, typically they are at low power stages anyway, so they probably have only about 4 power stages to spend. So and you choose a personality. They can't just choose which personality takes the stages. So you can go ahead and hit their Ginyu down to 0, get rid of their Goldo. Now Ginyu can't make any attacks this turn. They can't make any of the energy attacks, the searching attacks. You can also just, this is kind of one of the last cards you want to play in your hand because you want to get them to 0, but you could also just Sucker Punch them right at the very beginning of the turn.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an event, so it's very hard to block. So if you're playing against the Black Krillin or anything like that needs energy to use their attacks, and even if the deck's full of blocks, you just lead with this. You put them outside of their energy attack range, and now even if they block all your stuff, you're pounding on them, especially if you're level 2 and they soak up stages every time you do that anyway.
For sure. I mean, I think Nappa himself does such a good job of removing allies, and this card will most often than not be used to just destroy setup and drill.
Yeah,
or banish setups and drill.
I agree.
So moving on to the next, Nappa's Energized Charge.
Yeah, so Nappa's Energized Charge is a physical attack. Does 6 stages. A lot of the attacks that he does do flat stages, which is kind of a shout out to his low power levels, but it is nice.
Evens the playing field
right.
a little bit, yeah.
No, I agree. And whenever your opponent's main personality changes level, this combat set their power level to 0, which is very, very useful. That's one of the things we talked about. One of the problems with physical beatdown decks is that halfway through the combat, they'll gain 10 life. When they change levels, they'll just go straight to the top. So this helps solve that problem and makes it really good against decks that are trying to win with anger, so they don't randomly get those extra life points to deal with.
So both Nappa's cards, very good. Next we have the one setup, which is a 3-up, and this is kind of one of those cards that, like, I don't really want to run a setup in Nappa.
Right. I don't
Every card I want to draw, I just want to punch you in your face.
Right.
This setup, obviously dead draw when you're entering combat, but it's just so overpowered.
It's so good.
You just have to run it.
It's so good.
If you guys don't know what the card does, it essentially just levels you up.
Yeah. It gains you 4 anger and draws you a card probably.
Yeah.
So it's really good.
Pretty nutty. Moving on, these are every attack in the deck, I think, except for one, is a physical.
Right.
So we kind of broke up all the physicals into what they do for the most part. These are kind of clumped together in giving you anger.
Sure.
So all of these, in some way, shape, or form, are going to give you 1 to 2 anger.
Mm-hmm.
All pretty powerful.
Yeah, a lot of them are ones that you've seen from last season. Some new ones are Saiyan Spin Kick. It's a physical attack at tactile plus 3 stages. Raise your anger 1 level, and then you can lower your opponent's anger 1 level and destroy an ally. It does all the things.
Yeah, that one's a pretty powerful.
Just does everything. It's very good. All right, so then we have Saiyan Driving Punch. That's physical attack at tactile stages plus 3 life cards. And your main personality is considered to have a higher power level than your opponent's personality for this combat, which is really good with Nappa because he doesn't always have those huge stages. So this kind of tricks him into thinking that you're bigger than you are. If you hit, you rejuvenate this card, which gains you another anger because it's a Saiyan card. So they kind of have to block it, or else you just gain 2 anger off of it. You're going to gain 1 when you attack with it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
those are the new ones. But
those are the new ones. The other ones look familiar. Now, this is kind of the category of just really powerful punch you in the face. I keep saying punch you in the face, but that's just what Nappa does.
It is what it's doing. There are also a lot of endurance in this little category here. It's a way to kind of gain life. There aren't very many blocks at all. I think just the time is a warrior's tool, so it's kind of a suicide deck.
It very much is. Yeah. It's very aggressive. Like you really just want to win the die roll and then just stomp your opponent into the ground. That's your plan, right? Yeah. We have this joke going on that's just like, if the card has Nappa on it, you should probably play it. And as you can see, 3 of these cards, Saiyan Elbow Drop, you have Saiyan Gut Kick, and Saiyan Uppercut, all have Nappa on them.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, so those are all very powerful cards. Any of these stand out to you?
No, I think most of these are staples from last year. Saiyan Elbow Drop, probably the best attack in the deck. It's just pure card advantage, and the way that it interacts with the mastery is insane. So it's plus 2 anger. It's 2 separate attacks for attack tail plus 3 stages,
right.
So it's probably 9 to 10 stages of damage, but it's broken up between 2 attacks, so it's very hard to block because it stays in play to be used another time. Saiyan Acute Rapid Slam gains you a bunch of life essentially if you play it first.
Yeah.
As long as you lead with it, and then all of your attacks go to the bottom of your deck, so it'll gain you an extra 4 or 5 life cards sometimes. And all these cards have the other ones have a ton of endurance, and that's kind of what you need when you're going to be taking a lot of hits right in the chin.
Yeah.
You don't want to get critical a bunch of times. You also don't want to die before you can kill your opponent. So
absolutely,
I think they're pretty good. Uppercut was kind of an interesting addition. We did the math. It didn't look very good because you're probably not going to have a higher power level, but the fact that it is flat 5 stages and then a flat 7 stages actually made it mathematically more damage than most of the other attacks you can play.
Right, so it actually ended up finding its way in the deck list.
Yeah.
Another thing I like to mention about the elbow drop is if you're on Nappa level 2,
right.
It just further exploits that additional stage damage that you're going to do. So, like, 1 elbow drop, if your opponent did happen to level up during combat, that's that 2 extra stages. You're looking at an additional 4 stages of damage. Yeah, it's backbreaking. Like, anytime an opponent ever played an elbow drop against me, I was just like, well, I think I lost. And then moving on, lastly, we called these the utility cards, the utility combat cards, which, I mean, we talked a little bit before about the body blow, which allows you to grab your 2 MP attached cards, your events. Mm-hmm. We have the 1 energy attack, which is a little strange because you don't really want to be losing stages. You don't want to drop yourself a tier on the attack table. But the fact that you have a critical damage effect, essentially like just tacked onto this card, is just huge. And just the options, I think, like I said earlier, Nappa just does a good enough job by himself destroying allies. So we just kind of figured that maybe we want to steal Dragon Ball every now and then.
Sure. Sure. And then Saiyan Grab is it's villains only, banish after use, so you know it's going to be good. And it's a physical attack. The damage is at attack table stages. Personality performing the attack has a higher power level than the defending personality. Can't be stopped. Again, we talked about it. It's maybe one of the last cards you play on the turn, just to make sure that they're already at 0. And if they're already at 0, you're still going to do some reasonable stages.
Yeah.
It gains you the anger, and then if you hit, you draw a card. So even if you don't have a higher personality level than them, you're still going to gain the anger. You're still going to draw the card unless they block. So it kind of, it sucks up a block out of their hand, or it could just pile on the punishment.
Yeah, so I mean, like you just said, if they don't have the block, then they're just in for a world of hurt. If they do have the block, you maybe hold it for your last combat, and then maybe you draw a Saiyan elbow drop, and then you just win.
Sure.
So that's going to be it, guys, for the Nappa Saiyan deck. Hopefully you guys like it. Make sure you leave a like, or hit the button of thumbs down below. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys want to see. Let us know what you guys' thoughts on the deck list was, what you add, what you take out, what cards were crap, what cards weren't. Just let us know.
Yeah, it was good seeing you guys.
Have a good one. Bye.